Yo, what's up, everyone?
How's it going? What are we on? Episode
Four.
four? Four.
Yeah, we're on number 4. Happy Friday.
Markets are shaky, huh?
Yeah,
How's
yeah, it's kind of
everyone
strange.
holding up?
Hopefully a little surprising
I
shakeup
mean,
in the markets, but
to be honest, a little. I mean, I know it was triggered a week ago by like the tariff news globally, but probably necessary. I hate to say it, but somewhat necessary. Like a little correction. Hopefully, it doesn't just continue. That's the key. But we've been running for 6+ months. I know BTC hasn't as much, which I am surprised by on that front. Obviously, gold has, I think, taken a lot of that volume. There's some headwinds, I think, globally, probably for BTC, but in general, the market's probably needed a little correction.
yeah, I agree. I do feel like the BTC gold thing is like feels like it's taking a little bit from Bitcoin. And I don't know if we have proof of it yet, but it does definitely feel like other governments are buying up gold, and that's kind of the reason to buy gold in a funny enough way. Versus BTC as a government, apparently, this has been the narrative that, yeah, you can hide how much gold you have as a government, physical gold, whereas it's not as easy to hide how much BTC you have, which, I mean, I don't know how true that is. But when it comes to somebody buying volumes that a government would buy, that would definitely, a lot of people would immediately be like, whoa, look at this wallet, or look at these cluster of wallets on chain that are suddenly really aggressively buying, which you can't exactly pinpoint on the gold side. At least, the general public can't. So I think that's also why in the last month there's been a rip on Zcash, right?
Yeah,
Which
that
is
seems to be
kind
a
of off
trend
the
right
back.
now
Yeah.
that governments don't want the visibility that comes with the blockchain and holding BTC and with how they're moving it kind of reveals their cards. Yeah, I have been reading a lot about that. Makes sense. But it's obviously transparent. That's the entire concept, which is also the benefits of it. But I don't think it's going to be one or the other, really, right? Once you have like central banks, we're talking about trillions of dollars, like crazy amount of volume. So it's probably going to be a blend. It'd be pretty dangerous, I think, just to go pretty heavy gold as well. But basic investing fundamentals, I think. But yeah, I think in general the market probably needed a little correction. But yeah, maybe we can jump in. People should be settled in a little bit about get into some updates on the MetaLend side. As promised, we'd use this kind of channel and platform to give a little bit of alpha, talk about what's upcoming. Yeah, I just saw someone mention the Paxos incident. Definitely can get into that a bit. I know that is very pertinent for stablecoins. So much for not being able to print, right? Like the
Yeah.
Feds do. But I just wanted to give the audience a little bit of an update on MetaLend. So yeah, last week as we mentioned, we deployed another protocol that we're aggregating, Euler, which is really promising. We hinted at another stablecoin coming soon, which we're excited about, and I think we can let folks know. You'll be able to aggregate soon MUSD. As you all know, we have a very strong partnership, strong relationship with the MetaMask consensus team across a lot of fronts. So we're excited to bring kind of MUSD savings account experience to our users. MUSD is growing well, very nascent, about 100 million already market cap. Strong plans to grow that. Obviously, they have a strong distribution channel to get that stable out. So excited to add there. Some deeper integrations also coming on that front. And we put out an article also yesterday on what we see as the future kind of financial stack, I'd call it. And I just want to touch on that a little bit, which is We're a fintech layer, right? We're a fintech layer on top of protocols. And to remove the term protocols, because soon, like, we shouldn't even be calling them protocols, right? They're channels where people can deposit money. We are the layer that's going to be. I don't know how many folks know Mercury. I like to do that comparison. Mercury is a fintech layer for a lot of small businesses. We use Mercury for our balance sheet management as well. And what they do is they make all of your banking needs seamless, right? They're not a bank themselves. They don't custody. They sit on top of other banks that help with the processing, but they are the interface, and that's what's gonna, be the case also for DeFi. People are, gonna protocols like Aave and Morpho will be the underlying kind of, call it, whether they're like treasuries, like whatever comparison you want to make. There's plenty, or real estate mortgages, where banks usually go and park your money, but they're going to be managing liquidity and yields, and we, as a fintech layer, will be managing the interface. Sanjeev, thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to frame it. And the deeper thing there is that it means that you, as a user, can also just be fully in control of your where your funds are going, and that's, we want to make DeFi as easy to use. That's one of our tenets, but we also want to maintain the valuable aspects of DeFi, which are transparency, self custody. So everything with us is always self custodial, and a user directly with MetaLend or even through partnerships that we're bringing out will have the ability to control what end protocols they want their money to have exposure to. We're going to be going deeper and deeper on that as well. Ultimately, we want it to be that when you put your funds in a MetaLend, you could even say, hey, I'm comfortable with my funds going into any pool as long as wrapped Bitcoin is the collateral asset. I don't care if it's Euler, Morpho, or Aave, but I just want to make sure that it's like against wrapped Bitcoin. Because Euler and Morpho, for example, have pools of all kinds. And obviously they have strict requirements in terms of liquidity and that there's liquidation. So you're always solvent and things like this and good oracles. But again, if you, as a DeFi user, want that control, you can have that control and that transparency. But then at the surface level, we can, we set defaults and work with partners who are also building on top of us for them to set defaults for their users so that it provides that seamless experience as well.
Yeah, definitely. And when I say, I agree. When I say we're the fintech layer, doesn't mean necessarily that we have to be exactly directly to the consumer. Any distribution channel can leverage a lot of this infra. But again, I compare the current DeFi landscape to treasuries and mortgage loans. The general user shouldn't have to really go think about where in which treasury bill they should be putting their money in, right? No one does. Like, no one really. I mean, maybe there's a handful, but mostly people like consolidated yield, safe yield, which we've talked about on the insurance side, really progressing as well on the decentralized finance side. So we're getting close, I think, for the experience to meet the masses. And before, it was very niche. It was a very select few that actually forcefully had to learn the experience because they didn't have any other option. But now it's going to be an option amongst like the normal banking options. But yeah, that's exciting. We put out an article on that on Medium, also a thread on that on Twitter if people want to read about kind of our vision on the finance layer and stack. And I've been asked before, are you a competitor to Aave or Morpho? Are you, and the answer is no. We're working with those teams, right? Actually, because their tenets and KPIs are purely, well, obviously smart contract audits and security is really important for them. They're focused on that. So a lot of defense they have to play on that front. And we're really focused more so on making the experience as well as the optimization, right, of yield, which they have a more neutral kind of landscape when it comes to yield. But exciting. Let's transition maybe to some of this Paxos global macro markets. What is nice is DeFi held up strongly. Centralized exchanges had issues again. Binance, I know there was some issues. Coinbase, more so on the base side, I know had some issues on infra, but decentralized finance as a fundamental held up strongly. Aave was able to, I think, do $100 million in liquidations. Not fun to hear the word liquidations, but the point is, it held up. The fundamentals held up. Every lender was, unaffected. Which sometimes these like real world crashes, right? Flash crashes are test, right, to these systems, and it was nice to see them hold up.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was the biggest liquidation day in history so far. So exceeded some of the craziness in like 2022, for example. And yeah, it has held up even as collateral types have expanded. It's awesome to see a huge stress test for the system. And ultimately, yeah, the main beneficiaries of this obviously are every lender has always been kept whole, and solvent as well. So not only were you kept whole, you were able to withdraw. Now that being said, there are some scaling things the industry is working on that's more at the chain level. Um, Base had some issues on Friday, processing, just like getting through their transaction queues. So I think some interactions and all protocols on Base were unable to process transactions because Base, the underlying chain, was having issues with overwhelming volume. So there needs to be more scale up there, which is going to happen. But again, more of a positive thing of, hey, we are breaking through the existing kind of bottlenecks. We need to scale up. We need to scale up. So on the financial side, no alarms at all. Everything worked exactly as expected. On the infrastructure side, things need to ramp up to the next level because yeah, more and more people are coming on board, which is just a positive thing.
Yeah, interesting. On that note, on the base point specifically, from what I researched and read, it was tied back to Ethereum mainnet, just being really, really high on gas fees. So, which I mean, it's really cool that all of this is purely like economics 101, supply and demand, right? Obviously, but it
Yeah,
seemed like there needs to be definitely some work done when it comes to scaling the blockchains. I know the L2s have drastically helped in terms of even cost, but eventually everything gets settled on mainnet, right? That is like
yeah, that's true.
still reconciled and settled on the Ethereum mainnet.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously there's Solana, there's other L1s, but I'm talking about EVM specific here. Most
Yeah,
of the volume when it comes to decentralized finance is there. So, we're in touch also with the ETH Foundation. I think they're doing some exciting things. So work in progress. This is probably their number one focus, scaling.
hmm
Um, we're talking about, who would have said maybe, 7, 8 years ago that we'd be processing trillions of dollars on a weekly basis via the blockchain.
yeah,
Um, so it's not fun to go through it. It's not fun things when things go down. Obviously, people lose trust in that forth. But the silver lining here is that we're at such a scale that we're talking about moving global economies on a daily basis via the blockchain. So I think it's good to take a step back and just realize how big this is and how like
yeah,
day to day it's no longer just speculation. We're living it. So
yeah, totally. And I mean, it's going to go up. It's going to keep growing, right? Like especially with payments and stuff now coming on chain. I'm sure everyone's heard of like Stripe with Tempo, obviously the MetaMask card who we're partnering with, which is super exciting. And I think the second order effects of the scale up and well, once we scale up, transaction fees come down, all the volume is going to come on, right? We're already seeing payments come on, which we're associated with and tying into. But it enables so many other things. Like I was talking to somebody earlier this week about how all the inflation data we have is just so crap. Like it's just not reliable at all. But if payments are happening on chain, and if we can get some form of understanding for what the payment was for, theoretically you can run scripts on chain data for how much is the average receipt at this store costing, how does that change over years. Obviously that takes a certain amount of time to accumulate, but you can do real analysis on cost of goods in a way that nobody can today, right? Like we're all just taking the word for it when the inflation data comes out, and then inevitably all this stuff gets revised 6 to 9 months later anyway, and so there's no
yeah,
trust there. And so once the scale up happens, all the use cases come on, and everything comes into this transparent place. And then with that, that enables so many more things. And the transparency itself is just so valuable. It lets everyone tap in and see what's going on under the hood if they want. And at that point, yeah, you can't have kind of governments lying about what inflation actually is, et cetera.
Yeah. Which we kind of go full circle on because we started the call on governments not wanting kind of the transparency that comes with holding BTC.
Yeah,
But definitely agreed that the blockchain, when it comes to the transparency it provides, is a net positive for society. Call it, like, I don't want to get into like a
yeah,
philosophical conversation or a political one even, but yeah, like just how public companies have to do quarterly earnings, and you can go look at their balance sheet and their expenses and CEO salaries. Same should be for the balance sheet of the local sovereign entities, and the blockchain is the technology that would enable that. It's going to take time. Obviously, there's going to be resistance. I'm seeing a few questions here on like banks and TradFi fighting back. Yeah, definitely, right? People that benefit from not having that transparency will definitely fight back in ways, but when it's inevitable because there's so much volume and liquidity on these chains, I'm talking about the bank question here, TradFi and banks.
yeah,
There's too much to lose, and Robinhood, I think, is a perfect example. They were first to be like, "Hey, we're not going to be just stocks, right? We're going to expand because there's so much volume here. There's so much value that can be created. It's too hard to say no to." That is the beauty of capitalism, right? Flow goes in general towards profits and revenue, and you have an incentive structure, and now you have the volumes to do it. Will it cannibalize some? Potentially, but I see it as incremental, right? Because
mm,
you're putting more people in the world on to finance in general. Again, I
yeah,
keep using Robinhood here, but I think Robinhood's an amazing example because that's what they did for stocks. Wall Street and in general, like Morgan Stanley and E-Trade did, when Robinhood launched their feeless trades, definitely resisted, I think at times, but now they
yeah,
all have it. And net, they're making more money. Even those brokerages are making more money. Why? Because there's more. Top of funnel just got larger. So that's how I view eventually the traditional finance and banks adopting blockchain, because it's now obviously they had some regulatory hurdles, and now those are starting to get cleared up. But that top of funnel is just massive for them. There's no reason that they shouldn't make money off of someone in another part of the world that's using blockchain, and they're going to issue stable coins to do that. They're going to
yeah,
offer
totally.
savings accounts on DeFi. So that just answer that question.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it lets them offer global services instantly, right? Is what stablecoins lets them do. And they have been trying to fight back. I think that's why the Genius Act has that, like, a clause in it where you're not allowed to have a yield-bearing stablecoin. At least that doesn't fall within the compliance of the U.S. government, because the thought was that that would compete too much with banks and people just holding their money. People would prefer to hold their money in a yield-bearing stablecoin instead of a bank. It's not that big of a difference anyway, because the stablecoin companies just ended up partnering with exchanges to do that via a marketing rebate, like how Circle does with Coinbase. I think Kraken is doing it with USDG, etc. But yeah, they are trying in their ways to fight back. But I agree with you; they're just going to have to kind of come on board, and they are. They're starting to. So they know that
Yeah,
if they don't, they're going to get eaten. And to your point, if they do, they're actually going to grow. Their business is just going to change a little bit, but they are going to grow.
exactly. They're definitely going to grow. Their top of funnel is increasing. They know it. It's writing on the wall at this
Mhm.
point. It's interesting because we are talking to some institutions ourselves, because we're deep in, obviously, on the blockchain finance side, DeFi side, and they want exposure now. And the questions have changed from like, is it safe, or like what are like the guarantees? Now most of the trends when we're having these conversations with institutions is like, can you handle this level of scale? Can you handle this level of volume? Which
Mhm.
now is a fun conversation. It needs to be solved. I'm not saying it's easy. You can't just pour billions and trillions of dollars into a system overnight, right? The supply and demand needs to do its job. But the fact that we're having that conversation now with TradFi is exciting. They're like, how much can you handle? How quickly can we do it? Is, versus like, oh, we don't believe in this. And this is like, it was actually reminded me of at the summit, the shift in this happened actually really quickly and more drastically than I expected. Most of the media, most of Twitter, most of social, when it came to the campaign changes, specifically in the US, we're talking about BTC. It's going to run now, there's tailwinds. But it's really the shift when it comes to traditional finance getting exposure is way more than I expected. I thought there was going to be a lot more resistance, but they're like, go quick. We need to go now. We need you to be able to absorb a ton of volume. It's like
Yeah,
night and day, night and day.
totally. And I mean, that's like once the genie's out of the bottle on that stuff, you can't put it back, right? Like
Yeah.
once people all around the world are holding stable coins, you can't, there's no way to the government, the next administration can try to forcibly revoke stable coins or change something there. It's like, well, what do you mean? There's like millions, if not a billion people globally holding essentially US treasuries, basically paying back the US debt and enabling the repayment of US debt. Like they're not going to be able to justify moving backwards, at least on the stablecoin side of things at all. So
Yeah, no, Brad
it's
Garlinghouse, I think, CEO of Ripple, for those that don't know, talked about this week. Like, some people have been saying this is a 3 to 4 year cycle, maybe for this. It's not the case. Like, it doesn't matter really what administration comes into Sajid's point. You can't revert. Maybe they can try to like stunt innovation, new things a little bit, but when it comes to the existing economy and the stable coins, and you can't really revert those things. We have experience even trying to revert when it comes to like we have thousands of users, thankfully, and thanks to all of you that use us, but we can't even make changes for that, let alone try to make a change where trillions of dollars are being held in stables. You can't revert that. So I agree. This is not a temporary time. Well, cool. I know we just riffed a bit. We're at time. I think we handled most of the questions here. Transparency, don't trust, verify. Love to see it, but we'll be back next week.
yeah.
Thanks all.
Thanks everyone.